What's going on, y'all? Well, I've been hearing a lot of chatter about how good the Bucks been this year, being hailed as the in-quote best team in basketball. We must truly start to look at the playoff picture as the regular season starts coming to an end. Playoff seeding is starting to get locked in, and teams are starting to figure out rotations, rest, and matchups for the postseason. Well, in the midst of Giannis Antetokounmpo having an MVP-worthy season leading the Bucks to the number 1 seed, I'm here to remind everyone about the oh-so-scary Raptors that everyone should be on the lookout for. This Raptors team has a lot of upside and a lot to lose if they don't make noise this season with the finals run. Now, before we get started, I want to shout out the loyal subs. I always appreciate the support for the channel, and to the newbies, definitely click that subscribe button along with the bell next to it to stay updated on new videos. Let's get it. For the Toronto Raptors, this year is finals or bust, with management making aggressive moves left and right from the offseason, and it is clear the Raptors will blow this team up if they don't make the finals this year. After trading their franchise leader in points and a lot of other categories as well, we knew that Kawhi wasn't upgrading almost every way basketball-wise over DeMar DeRozan, no disrespect. However, many people also don't understand how valuable Kawhi's presence is during the postseason, and not necessarily regular season, along with Danny Green's arrival through that trade. Both of these two have been members of not only a championship team in 2014, blowing the Heat off the court by a record margin, but have also been a part of teams that won 67 games in 2015-2016, and a team that won 61 games in 2016-2017, while also looking very dominant against the Warriors in the Western Conference Game 1 prior to Kawhi going down with injury to a Mr. Zaza Pachulia shot. Now, they also have their head coach as a disciple, basically, of Popovich and Nick Nurse, which is going to be a positive for them because they're modeling after that style. It was assumed at the beginning of the season that Kawhi and Danny would bring a championship swagger to the locker room, which proved to be true. In the beginning of the season, the Raptors went on a tear, making people believe that they were the best team in the East, securing big wins over Golden State and Boston. However, during the midseason is where things began to look a little shaky, with the Raptors going 8-7 during December and 10-5 during January for a combined record of 18-12 during that period of time, which was the league's 13th best record at the time. Now, since then, the Raptors have gone 8-1 during February and have picked back up their play. But before we talk about Toronto's strengths, I want to talk about their weaknesses and just touch on that right now, which is mainly effort. Toronto has had a losing record against teams that have generally been considered, in quote, overachievers, such as Milwaukee going 1-3 against them, and Denver, where they were swept in the season series. Both are teams that are known for giving you their best every night, and Toronto has struggled to get up for these. Kyle Lowry is also a big worry for the Raptors, as they cannot afford him to play under the radar. For the 11 games that Kyle has scored in single digits, the Raptors are 5-6. This is major because while I believe that he won't, disappear this year, Kyle is known for going ghost when you need him the most, and that's just something that cannot happen this year, or he can expect to play elsewhere next season. Toronto's strengths are something I want to touch on because it just shows how mature this team is on conservation for the playoffs and game management. The Raptors are currently 6-14 when trailing after 3 quarters. And while I know this sounds meh, this actually is 3rd place in the NBA. Now, the only teams who have done it more are the Golden State Warriors, which makes sense, and the Detroit Pistons, which when this probably I would attribute to them possibly always trailing, so there's more opportunity to make comebacks. But big up to Detroit on that. Also, in late game situations where the Raptors have been criticized for too much Kawhi ISO play, they are actually the 2nd best team in NBA games decided by 3 points, only behind Denver, which is impressive. If you look at the total playoff picture, while people have been dazzled by Greek Freak's MVP level season and the Bucks being number 1 with the arrival of new head coach Mike Budenholzer, who's doing a great job, just go look at the standings. Toronto's only 2.5 games behind Milwaukee despite that, and Toronto's been on cruise control from about December. The Bucks will face problems against the Raptors because the Bucks have a lot of cogs that depend on Giannis being able to get that penetration. During the postseason, the Bucks will not be getting wide open 3-point looks that we've been seeing them get throughout the entirety of the season. What OKC and Boston showed us, but especially OKC, is that to stop Greek Freak, you must box him out with athletic, strong bigs and refuse entry into the paint, which is possible only if you have the personnel. Toronto has that personnel. They have Kawhi Leonard, who can, guard Giannis on the perimeter. Pascal Siakam, who can guard Giannis anywhere, is even considered by many to be Giannis light. Serge Ibaka can guard Giannis on the post and stick with him on foot. And Marc Gasol, former Defensive Player of the Year, who is older and slower now, can guard Giannis in the middle and be a great defensive anchor. Toronto has a lot of pieces like OG Anunoby and Danny Green who can stick with any wing and guard that Milwaukee has as well, as Kyle Lowry being a pretty good defender himself when locked in. Milwaukee has too much dependence on Greek Freak's game, which is currently shown to be not effective for high-level situations. Just go look back at last year in the playoffs. I know they had a different coach or temporary coach at the time, but I actually had Greek Freak and the Bucks picked to beat Boston Celtics in that series because Greek Freak was by far the best player playing in that series. However, it didn't go so well. They went to a Game 7 and they lost. You can also go look at Greek Freak's All-Star performance versus KD as an example for what I mean about Greek Freak's game. Giannis has to put a lot of energy into getting into the paint, which limits him because a team that gets to study him and zone in on him for 2 weeks will utilize a similar game plan as the OKC Thunder, which is to force Giannis to become a spectator on offense and get the ball into everyone else's hands. This is easier said than done, but this is because while Eric Bledsoe has been playing well this year along with the rest of the Bucks, let's not forget what happened last year when Scary Terry was giving EB that work and Eric was just looking for a map and he didn't look interested in playing the game of basketball. While I do believe that Giannis will win the MVP, many people just got to remember that Kawhi is from the Spurs school of thought where going all out during the regular season is not their style. And they win games that they should and basically just keep players healthy. Kawhi is the perfect player for the Raptors because he can create his own shot and create instant offense for a team that lacked that last year in a player. And he can do that in tight games. Let's look back at the 2014-2015 season where standings come into play, when the Cavs were the 2nd seed and swept the 60-win Hawks, who were the number 1 seed, who were coached by the same Mike Budenholzer as well, in a similar 3-friendly style of basketball the Bucks do now. And just to let you guys know, one could say that the Cavs have more star power with LBJ. The Hawks that year had 4 All-Stars, and Paul Millsap was balling out that year along with Al Horford, who are both max players now. So Atlanta had the talent to at least take 1 game from the Cavs, which just didn't happen. We can also look at the 2016-2017 playoffs, where the Cavs were 2 games behind the Celtics, who had IT that year, and quite frankly, he was playing MVP-level ball, and were taken in 5 games with a great head coach as well. The way that the Bucks play is not conducive to postseason success, and guys like Brook Lopez will be getting attacked all night on pick and rolls, and the smart teams will force players like EB, Brogdon, and Middleton to have to drop 30 plus on them to beat them. Now understand this. The Raptors have a lot to lose this season, and this playoffs basically means everything to them, which is one of the reasons why they rest Kawhi on site whenever necessary, because they don't want to take any chances. This loss in the playoffs may prove to be the best thing for Giannis as well, because if he, after an MVP year, having a coach of the year, head coach, and all the pieces around him still can't make a deep run, then he will be forced to go back and work on that jumper, which if obtained, could and probably would make him a possible top 2 player in the league automatically. Also, please don't forget that Toronto has basically the top 2 out of 3 players in that series should Milwaukee and them play, and have multiple champions and players that have won championships and or have had deep postseason runs. Unlike Milwaukee, which has Pau Gasol now, but that's basically it. Milwaukee under Giannis' reign, while still young, have not even seen the 2nd round, and will be tough for them to knock off a team with so much experience, personnel, camaraderie, and pressure to succeed. My pick on the Toronto Raptors is locked to be the Eastern Conference champions barring catastrophic injury. They're just built to switch on everything. They have a top 10 point guard in the league when healthy, a top 5 player in the league in two-way phenom Kawhi Leonard, who is a champion, and the spacing necessary to go toe-to-toe with any team in the East. Just to remind people that the two-way stud Danny Green set the finals record for 3-pointers made in only 5 games. The Raptors have spacers, alright? Also, don't forget about the double-edged sword that is the pressure for the Toronto Raptors to succeed this postseason, as well as with Kawhi Leonard. On one side, a finals run with this Kawhi trade could be seen as the greatest heist in recent NBA history, or with an absence of one finals appearance, it could be considered one of the biggest duds. Kawhi also has pressure to succeed because, trust me, the other GMs have been keeping a very close and watchful eye on the situation. They will look to see if the resting has led to him being fresh and still being that 2017 killer that had his foot on Golden State's neck, or if he's really washed and he's only playing well to receive a supermax. I also, look, man, I always say that no pressure, no diamonds, but pressure also busts pipes, so there is some risk involved here. However, in my humble opinion, the Raptors collectively are greater than the sum of its parts and will be tasting the finals for the first time in franchise history this year. and I'm taking that check to the bank. All right, I'm taking that check to the bank. I'd like to thank all of you for making it to the end of this video, and if you haven't yet, click that subscribe button to keep getting more NBA hot content, basically just delivered hot and ready, fresh to your mobile device. You already know to never be mad at me, but to be mad at yourself for being an underachiever. Play the outro.